So with having parents, especially a Nigerian parent, sometimes the option is where you get the most money from. So
Yes,
Eastern View
yes.
was able to provide just scholarship money and just, really able to provide almost everything for me to attend. I didn't realize that public speaking is extremely high fear for most people. People put that sometimes close to death, and people would rather do so many things than just do public speaking. But it was just the oddest thing. Like as soon as I got on stage, it just felt like everything dissipated. Time slowed down, and I was able to see everyone in the audience very clearly as I was speaking. And it's like the nervous jitters just diminished, which I was surprised of myself.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Career Education Learning Center podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell Rivers. I am honored and pleased to have on our show today, Ronke. And she's going to pronounce her last name, ladies and gentlemen, because I do not do a good job. If you see my past podcast, you know I cannot pronounce names. So I'm going to let her introduce herself in a little bit. But I am so happy to have her today. She's in the pharmaceutical industry. Moreover, she's an accomplished speaker. So we're going to talk about her industry as far as pharmaceuticals and what she think about that and how it's changed. And we also want to talk about her speaking engagements. How are you doing today, Ronke?
I'm doing great, Mitchell. Thank you for having me on your show. I'm so excited.
And thank you for coming on the show. Now, Ronke, go ahead. Let's get that out of the way. How do you pronounce your full name for my audience to know?
Absolutely. It's Ronke Adetolu.
You see, ladies and gentlemen, I would have messed up that name so bad. She would have ran off the show.
It's okay. I am
Off the show, ladies and gentlemen. That's why I reserve last names if they're hard for me to pronounce to the guests. So, Ronke, tell us a little bit about yourself as well as how did you get in the pharmaceutical industry?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Some years ago, I did my
Many gonna say many years ago. You know, you see, change that up.
song.
Many say many years ago, but that's okay. We'll take it. Go ahead, Ronke. I'm sorry.
So some years ago, I guess I can say as a child, I was always intrigued and interested in health and medicine, and it sort of fueled my interest as I went to college. And so I got my undergraduate in biology. And so my goal was to go into medicine. And so after I finished school, I did an internship at the USDA. I also worked in a pharmacy, and it really started to intrigue me about the pharmaceutical or the medical or the medicine aspect of it. And so after that, I directly went, after my internships, I started working for a pharmaceutical company. And I really enjoyed the entire quality part of it, the regulatory part of it, and it's continued with me through my career to today.
Has there been much changes since you started in the pharmaceutical industry, even in your area of work?
Yeah, I would definitely say it's been more changes. The pharmaceuticals are regulated by the US government, so the FDA. And so those regulations are updated and they change. And so being in the industry, you have to stay abreast of those things. But definitely I have seen changes into tighter restrictions or tighter regulation. Don't let me say restrictions, but tighter regulations, which is good because in turn, it protects the American people and the medication that they receive.
Are generics good? Do you know the name of generic medicines just as good as the regular, especially if you can't afford them? Because I know I have to use generic. I'm not as economically sound as my guest. I mean, as my guest and my audience is. And so I've heard about generics, that the generics are okay to use.
Yeah,
Generics
generics.
used as a name brand.
Generics are still a great alternative to the branded medication. You're still getting the same active ingredient, and so that active ingredient is actually treating the illness that someone may have or any symptoms someone may have. And there is no major difference between the two. I'm sure some people may personally choose brand over generic, but they should be equivalent in how they work in your body.
Now, you went to ECU for your undergrad. Did you go for your grad or undergrad too,
Yeah,
ECU?
I did. I went to ECU. I had a really good time at ECU. I tried to balance it all, and I tell myself that I was a little nerd there while I was there. So I actually did two majors. I did biology and public health. So there were some semesters where I had to get approved to take 20 hours just so I could yeah, so I
That
could just
that is a
finish some
lot.
time. So it was a lot, but I met some great people, great friends, and I built some great relationships, and those relationships I still hold like valuable today.
And for my audience who may not be from the Carolinas, ECU is East Carolina University, home of the
Oh,
Pirates.
go Pirates.
Now, did you plan to go ECU? Was that one your first choice to go to school at ECU, or do you have other choices, or why did you choose ECU to make your educational career?
Yeah, I had quite a few choices, and I'll be honest, my first choice was Furman.
Okay.
I visited Furman and I fell in love with the school. It was just so beautiful. It just felt just so nice and cozy. And I did have other options as well. However, for ECU, well, I guess let me rewind a little bit. So, with having parents, especially a Nigerian parent,
Huh? ECU,
sometimes
you know she's real smart, right?
sometimes the option is where you get the most money from. So
Yes,
ECU
yes.
was able to provide just scholarship money and just really able to provide almost everything for me to attend. So I'm so grateful for that. So while I did have other choices, I was encouraged to take the option that was basically almost paid for.
Hey, Ronke, that's me, you, and all our audience. Look, go where you get the most money. Okay, I wanted to go to
Yes.
Elon College and Furman. That's so ironic. I want to go to Furman University
Oh,
too, and Elon was my first choice. Furman was my second choice, and then UNC Pembroke, where I ended up with my third choice. And I went
yeah.
where I got the most money. In fact, Ronke, I went to a community college first. I graduated from Central Piedmont Community College here in Charlotte, North Carolina, which I'm very proud of. And then I transferred over to UNC Pembroke, in which I got my bachelor's degree in business administration and management. And
That
so
was smart.
I
You
keep telling
saw.
my audience, like, hey, if you can't afford it, you do like I did, use the military as a way also funding for your education career, use apprenticeships, a lot of
Yeah.
organizations that you work for, a lot of jobs get scholarships. So if you work for like Chick-fil-A, Burger King, Best Buy, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, all of them have scholarship offers also for our guests that's looking at this show here. So, audience, if you got a chance, go to your guidance counselor or talk to people at the school that you want to go to. If you don't have enough money or you're not unable to go because maybe you have children or no career or whatever, try the community colleges or technical schools first and then transfer. Those are options out there for you. So,
That's
being
really
from
good.
Nigeria, did your parents have influence as far as in your life becoming a pharmacist or even a speaker? What type of influence did your parents have?
Yeah, absolutely. My parents, I always say that I'm so grateful that I have the parents that I have. My dad has since passed in 2017,
I'm sorry,
but
to hear that.
we thank you. But my mom and dad are just wonderful people. Just as I grew up, I looked to both of them as my role model in different ways, of course, but. I'm just grateful for the parents that I had. I would say from a speaking aspect, from what I'm doing from a speaking standpoint, my dad had the most influence. And from the medical aspect, I would say my mom, because she started into nursing when I was younger, and I used to flip through all of her little anatomy or her big anatomy textbooks. And I think that's what made me start to have that love for medicine and understanding the body. But yeah, so with my dad and public speaking, when I was younger, I always remember listening to a lot of the audio tapes that he would have of Les Brown. And just as a kid, I remember just hearing it so often, all of the motivational speeches and just the practical ways of thinking. as well as my dad encouraging me. I remember a lot of times as a kid, I would have long lectures, but it wasn't always for doing anything bad. It was not for doing anything bad, but when I look back now as an adult, he
Mhm.
was just really trying to explain life to me before, I encountered different problems or situations. So he was really just trying to give me a heads up on how to frame things when I see him, how to understand, how to think about things. And so I would say he probably had one of the most influences with me being a public speaker.
Well, that's fantastic. 'Cause that's, your mom on one side, your dad on the other side. It's how important parents are to that, the
Yes.
influences on that, you know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
that's a great segue to get more to your speaking because I did see your profile, Ronke, where you did a TEDx speaking for Mallet Creek. Tell us about that and how that process. Because, ladies and
Oh.
gentlemen, I want to be TEDx, but I got TED Z. I mean, they Z me on out of the studio. So you go ahead and tell us about TEDx.
Oh my gosh. I could say everything great about TEDx. That was definitely the highlight of my 2025 year and probably many years from before that. But it was just such a great opportunity. I've always wanted to do TEDx and I have it on like a bucket list item. And, I didn't think it could happen for me this soon, but I'm really grateful for, and I'll talk about the preparation I did for TEDx. I'm part of Toastmasters and actually our South Park Toastmasters. And I joined Toastmasters around that COVID time. And it's literally just like a family there where you can have to complete your speeches and really everybody's there to encourage you. Everybody's there to help you get better. And the great thing about it during COVID is that we weren't meeting in person. So it was over the phone. So it's just a level of nervousness that you don't have.
Uh-huh.
But when it was time for us to come back and be in person, throughout practicing week by week by week, it helps you to remove those nervous jitters, from your speech. And with that, I was on LinkedIn, scrolling, just looking at some things and updating myself on what was going on in my feed. And I saw where TEDx Mallard Creek was extending speakers, and I was like, oh my goodness. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna try because I had applied twice prior.
Mhm.
I'd even applied out of the country to one in Nigeria because I have dual citizenship. So I'd even applied to one in Nigeria, and I
Oh
was like,
my
"Oh my
goodness.
gosh, how am I even gonna do this?" And lo and behold, I was able to work with the organizers and be able to speak to them and express my interest. And it's not something for the weak, right? It's a whole process you go through to be chosen, and it's step by step. You don't know that you're chosen as a speaker until those last steps. And the bigger part of it is that you just have to be prepared.
Hmm.
Right. So once I was chosen, right, because my theme or what I wanted to speak on was on theme for the event. So after I was chosen, now it's you got to memorize this long speech, right? Or you're given it, but you can't use notes.
Oh my
And I was
goodness.
like, oh my gosh, so I'm doing a TEDx, and I was like, now I have to memorize something so long, and somehow it's just a repetition over and over and over. I, read it over and over. I wrote it
Mm.
multiple times. And I do have to give credit to my coach that I worked with. Cara, she was so great in helping me to prepare as well. But after that, I took the TEDx stage with nervous jitters as I was walking up. So I heard my name call and I'm walking up on stage and I feel all these jitters within me. But it was just the oddest thing. Like as soon as I got on stage, it just felt like everything dissipated. And, time slowed down and I was able to see everyone in the audience very clearly as I was speaking. And it's like the nervous jitters just diminished, which I was surprised of myself. But I was so grateful because, when you're speaking, if you're nervous, you can hear the vibration in your voice sometimes.
Yes.
And so I was like, this mic is so close to me, and I hope, I don't have the nervous jitters, but everything just dissipated, and I felt just so grateful to be able to do it.
Well, that is great. I know I'm also for full disclosure, I'm also was a member of Toastmasters at one time. But ladies and gentlemen, I didn't get no TEDx speech. They
It's
wouldn't let me
coming.
see your way on out as I stated earlier. And so I think that's great. And did you do any speeches before TEDx? Any other speeches within the community or
Yeah.
for your company or within your industry?
hmm I did. I've worked with a few nonprofit organizations here in Charlotte. One of those are the Relatives. So, like last year and the year before, I would host like a monthly workshop with them. And so that was a long-standing speech, as being able to present as well. In addition, I worked with an organization out of Raleigh where I was able to present from a pharmaceutical and regulatory standpoint. So I was able to speak to them about when they have problems within the industry, how they should correct the issue, and not only correct it, but how they should put actions in to prevent it from reoccurring. Right. I also worked with Carolina Breast Friends here in Charlotte. Great organization. The work that they do for individuals impacted by breast cancer is just amazing. And so I was able to speak with that group, as well as join it's like a silent party where you have your headphones on and you can dance and everything.
Oh,
So,
I heard about that. I heard about that. I
yeah.
see on TV. Is that fun?
It was fun. It was my first time. It's almost surreal because you're all hearing the same music, but when you take it off, you hear nothing. So it was really good. And I would say those are probably the three highlights as I'm coming off the back of 2025 into 2026 that I've worked with.
That speech before then or after then? So did those other speeches occur before then or like you did them all in different orders?
Yeah, so they were all really close within the same proximity. I did my TEDx at the end of last year.
Mm-hmm.
And so just coming into this year, you know how it starts with the new year and
Yeah.
it's busy and bumpy. And I'm just starting to book different events out for the summer and finishing up with the spring. So it'll definitely be more to come.
Man, that's fantastic. And how much did Toastmasters help you as far as you said you was in Toastmasters and how much that prepared you? How much did that really help you when you start going speech to speech? And with each speech, do you feel yourself getting more comfortable doing speeches?
Yes, definitely. I would say Toastmasters helped me more than 90%, right?
Mhm.
10% is probably me showing up and just being prepared, but
Yeah.
but Toastmasters helped me so much.
Mhm.
And some people would think that even though you complete a TEDx, you don't need to continue to hone your skills. I still, as much as possible, try to attend my weekly Toastmasters, and I actually went on last week, Monday.
Oh, that's
But it's just continuous improvement, right? I never think that I'm above continuing to improve,
right.
in my speech, even with you, or in my speech and everyday speaking to people. It's always ways to improve. So it's
Toastmasters did help you do.
Postmates highly influential and very helpful for me.
Well, I just hope our audience knows that any type of speaking engagement, any type of learning that you can do outside your regular job or your regular training is great. It will enhance you and it can improve you overall, right? I mean, if you're
Yeah.
able to speak, speaking for the audience, then you'll be able to speak in front of as far as if you're selling something or if you're trying to promote your business or you're trying to get advertisers or sponsors, that speaking that you've done for Toastmasters and TEDx and other organizations that will also come into play because now you feel more comfortable. And
Yeah.
my mom was an English teacher, believe it or not. I don't say believe it or not because I don't always speak the proper English. And she would remind me. And so I did not do, ladies and gentlemen, say that Ronke does. I did not look through my mom English books and read. No, I did not look. My dad was a music teacher. I did not look through music and become a musician. And so I went totally opposite of what my parents done. And you can see the difference there, right?
Yeah, but you know what's interesting? Even though we choose different paths, you can still feel their influence in what you do, probably, right? Like,
Yes, I do. I do. You're
yeah.
100% right because as a member of Toastmasters, I also done speaking engagements with junior achievement. And so I would go to different classrooms and teach economics and government. And so that was a little off of teaching, right? I'm still teaching, right? I got a full
Exactly.
time teaching, and so some of that rubbed off on me. I have a brother teach, I have relatives that teachers, so there's lots of teachers in our family. I may not have pursued it full time, but I still do a lot on the side, and even with my
Mhm.
podcast and what I used to do beforehand. Teaching comes into play, right? Me
Yeah.
teaching other students and speaking to other students, and all that come into play trying to make sure that I get across to the audience what I want them to read, right? What I want them to
Mhm.
relate to, right? I want to relate
Yeah.
my message that I want young people to get, so that way they know that hey, get an education. Whether Ronke, it could be a 2 year, 4 year, it could be apprenticeship. It could come off being go to stylist school, beautician, welding, air conditioning, heating. There are many jobs and careers out there, and so there's
Yeah.
no straight path or no way to go on about that. Just find something you do real well, as they say, and do it real well, right?
Yes, I completely agree with you. I was going to highlight what you saying about teaching and just looking at your podcast and who you reach, you're actually teaching them, right? It's all of this is a form of exchanging knowledge, even the encouragement that you're doing to help them pursue careers, right? Just, I look at it as all of a form of us sharing and sharing our experience and sharing our knowledge with others.
I appreciate saying it. Thank you so much for saying that. I'm sure my mom and dad have been having finally smiling down on me. I tell this story
Finally.
because I did not like reading books, right? I'm like most kids. I didn't like reading. And so when I started my business venture here with the podcast, I read like 5 books in 3 months. And I'm thinking that my parents are in heaven and saying, now we're dead. Now the boy decided to read. You can read on this line. Now we're dead. Now I to see the boy to read. Oh my goodness. No matter what age you get, ladies and gentlemen, you can always not stop learning, right? Always keep learning until your day die.
Yes.
Keep learning. It never stops, whether you're in the same career or you want to switch careers. That's another reason why I had this podcast, Ronke, is that just in case there are individuals that retired or individuals want to switch careers, which we heard in past podcasts that I've done. So
Yes. No, that's so good.
yeah. Do you have any advice, suggestions for our young people that either want to go into the pharmaceutical industry or go into speaking?
Yeah, no, I will piggyback off what you said is I know sometimes when we're so young, we may not always know the exact direction that we want to go in, right? So you may not know that, hey, I want to be an attorney, I want to be a pharmacist or whatever it may be, but really look at your interests. What interests you? And then just try to get on that road to there. And like you said, community college is great because you can take those first 2 years and take all of just the required courses for two reasons, right? It's very economical. And
Yes.
then secondly, you get that exposure. And after you have those 2 years, a lot of times you know what direction you want to go in. And so when you go to a 4 year school or you go off to a trade school of your choice, you feel more certain about the decision that you're making. But I would definitely say just don't stop, right? Don't, it's always a temptation to say, I'm going to take a semester off, I'm going to take time off. And unfortunately, life happens sometimes in between
Yes.
that space,
Yes.
right? And sometimes, people can get the mindset that it's too late. I'm too old. I've wasted a year, right? You're maybe 19 and you're thinking, oh, I can't now go back into undergrad. No, trust me, it's never too late. It's never too late for you to pursue the path that you want, the future that you want, the dream that you have for your life. So that is definitely the advice for speaking. I would say if you can, join your local Toastmasters. The fee is definitely under $100, probably under $50. I just have to remember what it is. But for membership is really inexpensive. And if you can pay, I'm sure the organization can help cover the fee. But being able to speak, being able to communicate clearly and concisely with others, with other organizations is so important. I didn't realize that public speaking is a extremely high fear for most people,
Mhm.
right? So people put that sometimes close to death, and people would rather do so many things than
Yeah.
just do public speaking. So I would say, if you can try to conquer that area in your life, if it is a fear for for you. If it's not great and wonderful, more kudos to you because
Yes,
I was nervous when I started.
I'm nervous
But
too. Yes.
yes, but I would say just keep going, right? You to young people, keep going. You'll have bumps in the road along the way, and maybe you won't, right? So you can always be optimistic and things can go perfectly because it does happen that way for many people.
Yeah, I concur with that. And don't you also have on your LinkedIn page where people can see your TEDx speech on YouTube?
Mhm. I do. I do. I have a link to my TEDx talk, and it will take you directly to YouTube. And so you can listen to my talk as well as other segments I have on my YouTube as well.
So be sure to look at her LinkedIn, and that's how I got in touch with her. She has an impressive profile. I'm so proud of what you've done so far.
Thank you.
Again, I know the future holds so much more for you, and I'm pretty sure it does. But yeah, be sure, ladies and gentlemen, look on her page and get in touch with her if you need to. But thank you so much, Ronke, for coming on our show today. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Mitchell. I look forward to staying in contact with you. Thank you again, and thank you for having me.
And I'd like to thank our viewers and listeners for joining me, Mitchell Rivers, on another fantastic episode of the Career Education Learning Center podcast, where we're making your career dreams a reality. God bless.